Greetings and welcome to the 2021 Ole Miss Choral Symposium. I'm Don Trott, Director of Choral Activities here at the University of Mississippi. Tonight we're continuing our 5-part series, Performing Renaissance Music, a symposium on historical performance. Tonight is Part 5, Ornamentation and Expression, again presented by our headliner, Dr. Dennis Shrock. On behalf of the University of Mississippi, I welcome you, and now I welcome Dennis Shrock.
Thank you, Dr. Trott, for all your extraordinary assistance in managing the many details of this complex virtual operation, and also for your advice to me and guidance in all my work. Thank you also to the University of Mississippi for their most generous backing and support of the symposium. For this, our final video, in which we address ornamentation and expression, we deal with topics that may seem by many choral musicians foreign to Renaissance performance. Ornamentation being thought to be relevant only to music of the Baroque era, and expression being somewhat antithetical to the perceived objective and regulated nature of the Renaissance era. I actually thought this for years, even when I began collecting and organizing primary source quotations into performance categories such as meter, tempo, and phrasing. As I was doing this, I noticed that there were so many comments in the treatises of the time related to ornamentation and expression, and that there were quite a few treatises devoted to ornamentation alone. I had to make separate categories for these two aspects of performance, and I eventually ended up with quite a large pile of quotations. Then, when I realized the importance of ornamentation and expression and began to implement them into my performances, I realized how central they were to the music and to all the arts of the Renaissance era. The visual arts, for instance, were filled with ornamental imagery and were exuberant in expression. Here are 2 pages from the early Renaissance prayer book, The Hours of Catherine of Cleves, decorated with more than 100 illuminations in about 1434. On the left is a page with a central depiction of the risen Christ, with the saints John, Mark, Luke, and Matthew in circles on the border of the page, the border replete with ornamental design. On the right is a depiction of God the Father and the text of Psalm 70, verse 1. Deus in adiutorium meum intende, Domine ad adjuvandum me festina. Make haste, O God, to deliver me. Make haste to help me. Followed by the Gloria Patri. The 4 saints are in circles within the main depiction, and the border is, as in the previous page, filled with intricate ornamental designs. And here are 2 facing pages from the Mira Calligraphae Monumenta, the model book of calligraphy, created between 1591 and 1596. In videos 1 and 2, I showed pages of highly decorative script with illuminations of flowers, fruits, and insects. The book also has illuminations of alphabet letters, each letter with a biblical reference and corresponding imagery, such as Q and P here, and each of the letters is surrounded by a considerable amount of decorative ornamentation. I now turn to 2 triptychs. The first, The 7 Sacraments, is an altarpiece painted by Roger van der Weyden between 1445 and 1450, and now in the Royal Museum in Antwerp. On the left panel is depicted, from left to right, the sacraments of baptism, confirmation, and confession. On the right panel is the ordination of a priest, marriage, and the last rite. And in the center is the crucifixion. Surrounding all the depictions is an extraordinary amount of ornamental detail. The second triptych is The Garden of Earthly Delights, painted by Hieronymus Bosch beginning in 1450. On the left panel is the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. On the right panel is what happens in hell. And in the center are the activities that apparently lead one to hell. The entire work is wildly fanciful and filled with so many images one hardly knows where to look. And here are two depictions of the Last Judgment. On the left is the dome of the cathedral in Florence, the largest dome in the world, with frescoes painted by Giorgio Vasari and his student Federico Zuccari between 1572 and 1579. And on the right is the wall above the altar in the Sistine Chapel, painted by Michelangelo between 1536 and 1541, when he was in his 60s. Both paintings comprise more than 300 figures each. The music of the time would resemble this degree of visual congestion were the music to contain ornamentation added to the already composed notes and rhythms. And we know this occurred to an extended degree and thus very much resembling the paintings because we have primary source testaments to it, as well as treatises that instruct us in the application of the ornaments. We also have transcriptions of actual pieces that were ornamented during the Renaissance, quite a number of these transcriptions in the currently published volume of Anthology of Music, this volume entitled Original Vocal Improvisations. First, the treatises, 8 major ones in the 16th century. When I show the cover pages of the treatises and extracts of what's inside, you'll undoubtedly be wondering where I find all the primary sources. If so, I reply, they're all of them, available on the website IMSLP, which stands for International Music Score Library Project, but which is often called the Petrucci Music Library. Treatises and thousands of other original documents, as well as modern editions of music included, are accessed by just a couple of clicks on your computer. Just type in IMSLP and you have access to a world of fantastic historic material. But before we look at the first of the treatises, we need to understand 2 terms that are used in the discussion of ornamentation. The first term, passaggi, translates as passages and refers to the addition of melodic, stepwise scalar passages added to an existing phrase. The second term, diminutions, is similar and refers to the shorter notes that are added to an existing melody. Here is an excerpt from Lodovico Zacconi's 1592 treatise, Pratica di Music, the cover of which you can see on the left here addresses the general thought about the importance of ornamentation during the Renaissance. In the chapter of the treatise entitled The Manner to be Observed in Making Diminutions and to the Use of Modern Passages, Zacconi writes, as you can see on the right, music has always been beautiful, and it becomes more so each hour because of the diligence and scholarship by which singers enhance it. Music is not renewed or improved because of the composer's notes, but is made to appear always more beautiful by the application of graces and ornaments, which render such pleasure and delight that we seem to hear them as if sung by birds who with their singing steal our hearts and leave us well contented with their song. The enhancement of music is so great that whoever does not sing in this manner gives very little pleasure to his hearers. Hermann Fink, in his 1556 treatise Pratica Musica, discusses the types and distribution of ornaments one might apply to a composition. In his chapter entitled On the Art of Singing Elegantly and Sweetly, Fink writes, "The manner of adding embellishments depends upon the skill, natural suitability, and character of the ornament. Each has its own manner. There are many people who are of the opinion that the bass should be ornamented. Others say the discantus. But in my opinion, the ornaments can and should be applied to all voices, but only at appropriate places, and also not alike in all voices. Let the passages be done in their turn, in such a way that each is clearly distinguished from the others." Giovanni Battista Botticelli writes in his 1594 treatise, Regole Passaggi di Musica, Madrigali e Motetto Passeggiati, "Just as in writing a composition one ought to have an eye on the sense of the words so that they are not unseemly or defective in rendering a desired expression, so in singing, and particularly in producing passaggi, one ought to pay attention to the words. One should take care in dividing the notes for passaggi so as not to produce any barbarism by making short syllables long or long ones short." Other treatises are explicit in providing examples of the many types of diminutions to be used. Such is the case in the 1535 Ornamentation treatise by Silvestro di Ganassi. The writing at the top of the cover page here translates as, "The book entitled Fontegara, which teaches how to play the recorder, flauto, with all the skill that this instrument demands, and also ornamentation and divisions suitable to wind and stringed instruments, as well as to those who delight in singing. This written by Silvestro di Ganassi dal Fontego, musician to the most illustrious Signoria of Venice." Depicted below the title are a family of gambas hanging on the wall and a group of musicians sitting around a table playing recorders. Several of the treatises not only provide examples of the types of ornaments one might use, but the authors also actually ornament existing compositions of the time. On the left here is the title page of Compendium Musices, published by Adrien Petit Coquelicot in 1552. One of the chapters in the treatise, entitled Concerning Refinement and Ornamentation, includes embellishments to several compositions, one of which, the chanson Languir me fait, we will look at and hear momentarily. And on the right is the cover of Tratado de Glossas, translates as Treatise on Ornamentation, of 1553 by Diego Ortiz. Ortiz ornaments the madrigal O Felici Occhi Miei by Jacques Arcadelt. Meanwhile, Botticelli ornaments compositions by Palestrina, Rore, and Vittoria in his treatise. As for examples of the diminutions used, Coquelicot shows here an original melodic pattern, which he refers to as simple, followed by the ornamentation of that pattern, which he calls elegant. Along with the examples, he writes, "To the boy wishing to learn the art of singing well and elegantly, he should select a teacher who sings beautifully and smoothly and makes music elegant by ornamenting his phrases. He who has found such a teacher will become a singer such as Jacques Cantepré, Pierre Delarue, and other masters who employed the most admirable and smooth passages that are to be admired." After this, as I mentioned earlier, Coquelicot ornaments the soprano and bass parts of the chanson Languir me fait by Claudin de Sermicy. Here you can see the ornaments in his original script, which of course means nothing until the ornaments are compared to what Sermicy actually composed, as you can see here. the original music of the soprano and bass lines with Coquelicot's ornamented versions just below them. This is what the ornamented version sounds like. But to better comprehend the ornamentation, here is a performance of the original music without any ornamentation. And here is what both verses of the chanson might look and sound like, with concepts of Coquelicot's ornamentation applied by me to all the voice parts. The ornaments have been circled so that you can identify and separate them from original material. And note that the ornaments are different and a bit more elaborate in the second verse.
Je
While you might have been contemplating the complexity of ornamental practice during the Renaissance, and while you might be wondering what this might mean to us as performers today, I'll make the situation yet more difficult with one more example. The beginning of Botticelli's ornaments to the soprano part of Palestrina's madrigal Io son ferito, which was one of the most popular and reprinted madrigals of the 16th century. Note especially the final measures, which are almost impossible for us to comprehend, not only by the amount of notes added to Palestrina's original notation, but by the degree of difficulty, the extreme vocal agility required to sing the notes, even if sung at a very, very slow tempo. If you're thinking that I can't possibly expect you to ornament music in this fashion, you're correct. I don't expect that. We are not musicians of the Renaissance era. We don't have their training, and we don't live in an environment that has their expectations. However, we do have the ability to, and we should be able to adorn music, make it more expressive by adding a few passing notes here and there. This is what I did in Hassler's Tanzen und Springen, shown and performed in video 1 for Si Placet performance, as you please. I present it again now to show how a few passages here and there on the repeats of the music can make these repeats a bit more interesting. You can see by comparing measures 1 to 8 with measures 9 to 16, these latter measures being a written out repeat of the opening measures, that the circled notes, which are the ornaments, are for the most part passing notes. For instance, the tenor in measures 1 and 9, right after the double bar, and in measures 3 and 11. Here is a performance by our symposium singers, with the sopranos and altos singing the first verse, the alto, tenor, and bass singing the second verse, and everyone joining together at the end.
Tanzen und springen, singen und klingen, fa-la-la-la, fa-la-la-la, fa-la. Tanzen und springen, singen und klingen, fa-la-la-la, fa-la-la-la, fa-la. Lauten und Geigen soll auch nicht schweigen, so muss es werden und jubilieren stehen. Jungfrauen in grünen Auen, falalala, falalala, falla. Schöne Jungfrauen in grünen Auen, falalala, falalala, falla. Mit ihm spazieren und konversieren, freundlich zu scherzen, freut mich im Herzen für Silber und Gold. Falalala, falalala, falla. Falalala, 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 falla.
For a little more ornamentation on repeats of music, here is John Bennett's madrigal, Weep, O Mine Eyes. Note that, again, many of the ornaments are passing notes, and that there are more of them on the repeat of the madrigal, the repeat being in the fifth measure at the top of page 3. The ornamental passages are also an attempt to add to the expressiveness of the madrigal. And for a lot of fun, and for an ornamented score that begins to approach those of the Renaissance era, here is a performance of Pierre Serton's chanson, Je ne l'ose dire. First, we must look at the text, which is set by Serton with a refrain and 4 verses. The refrain is, la la la, I don't dare say, la la la, but I will tell you anyway. Then, for the 4 verses of the story, I've ornamented one of the voice parts while the others sing the original notation. The soprano ornaments verse 1. There is a man in our village who is jealous of his wife. He is not jealous without cause, because he is cuckolded all the time. The alto has verse 2. He is not jealous without cause because he is cuckolded all the time. He dresses and leads her to market, where she offers herself to all. The bass has verse 3, sung to a slower tempo to reflect the expression of the text. Finally, weary of torture, the poor man hangs himself, but his wife, out of malice, follows him to Lucifer. The tenor has the 4th verse, returning to a fast tempo. The moral of the story is that before getting married, you must know from that very day it is for all eternity. You'll see a score of each verse as it is being sung. The score having the original notation on the first line of music and the ornamental passages on the second line directly below.
La la la, je ne l'ose dire. La la la, je le vous dirai. Et la la la, je le vous dirai. Il est un homme en notre ville qui de sa femme est jaloux. Il n'est pas jaloux sans cause, mais il est coquet de tout. Et la la la, je ne l'ose dire. La la la, je le vous dirai. Et la la la, je le vous dirai. Il n'est pas jaloux sans cause, mais il est coquet de tout. Il a prêté ses lamelles au marché sans bateau. Et la la la, je ne l'ose dire. La la la, je le vous dirai. Et la la la, je le vous dirai. Enfin là de ce supplice, le père Rome se pendit. Mais sa femme par malice chez Lucifer suivit. Et la la la, je ne l'ose dire. La la la, je le vous dirai. Et la la la, je le vous dirai. La morale de cette histoire, c'est qu'avant de se marier, il faut savoir le jour même que c'est pour l'éternité. Et la la la, je ne l'ose dire. La la la, je le vous dirai. Et la la la, je le vous dirai.
The ornaments are obviously designed as amplifications of the music's expressive character, as is virtually every other aspect of performance I've discussed in previous videos, including syncopations, tempo variation, sound, pitch, and phrasing based on natural declamation. Everything should contribute to revealing the innate expression of a composition. And quotations from the Renaissance era state exactly this. Nicola Vicentino writes in the chapter entitled Rules for Singing in Concert Any Kind of Composition in his 1555 treatise L'Antica Musica, compositions differ according to the subject matter on which they are made. Thus, the singer must consider what the musical poet has in mind and express the music with diverse manners of singing, very much like the diverse manners of composition. The singer should attempt to conform to the ideas of the composer, and with his voice, express in those intonations, accompanied by the words, the suitable passions, now gay, now sad, sometimes sweet, and sometimes harsh. And William Byrd writes in the preface to his Psalms, Songs, and Sonnets of 1611, I'll read the words I've underlined in red. Only this I desire, that you will be but as careful to hear them well expressed as I have been both in the composing and correcting of them. Otherwise, the best song that ever was made will seem harsh and unpleasant, for the well expressing of them, either by voices or instruments, is the life of our labors. I'll close this video and the symposium with performances that attempt to comply with the advice of Vicentino and Byrd, and to capture the expression of 4 diverse compositions. First is Orlando di Lasso's chanson, Quand Montmory. When I played this in video number 1, it was for the purpose of musica ficta and recta, and I didn't mention expression. But here I want to point out the tempo variation of the singers at the end of the chanson, done to highlight the poignancy of the text. When my husband comes home, my payment is a beating. He takes the ladle from the pot, and at my head he throws it. I have great fear he'll kill me. He is a jealous villain. He is a villain, joker, grumbler. But I am young, and he is old.
Comment Marie vient de Comment Marie vient de haut. Arrêtez d'être battu. Arrêtez d'être battu. Arrêtez d'être battu. Il prend la cuillère du pot. À la tête il me la rue. À la tête il me la rue. J'ai grand-peur qui ne me dit, c'est un faux villageois, c'est un faux villageois, c'est un vilain rioto gros-vilain. Je suis jeune et il est vieux, c'est un vilain rioto gros-vilain. Je suis jeune et il est vieux, je suis jeune et il est vieux, et il est vieux.
The second example of expression is Carlo Gesualdo's madrigal Moro Lasso, published in his 6th book of madrigals in 1611, and an example of his abrupt changes in texture, chromatic writing, and unexpected harmonic shifts. Each line of text has its own rhythmic character. For example, the chromaticism of the opening, I die, alas, from my grief, and the fast rhythms of the following line, and who can give me life? The singers of Via Veritate have tried to capture the expression of these musical shifts. Note that Gesualdo repeats the first 3 lines of text with similar but not identical music, and the final lines of text with a literal repeat. The third example is Monteverdi's madrigal Si ch'io vorrei morire, which is a repeat from video number 4, where I presented it as an example of text underlay. Like Gesualdo, Monteverdi sets each line of text with a distinctive melodic and rhythmic character. The lines of text translated literally. Here, line 1 is, "Yes, I want to die now that I kiss, love, the lovely mouth of my beloved." Line 2 is, "Oh, dear and sweet tongue, give me so much of your wetness that from sweetness upon this breast I will expire." Line 3, which Monteverdi repeats, is, "Oh, my life, to this white breast please squeeze me until I swoon." And line 4, which is a short closing to the madrigal, is, "O mouth, O kisses, O tongue, I return to say, yes, I want to die." Unlike Gesualdo, Monteverdi is committed to a recitative-like delivery of text, and our symposium singers have tried to represent this, as well as to capture the highly sensual nature of the words. I leave you with Palestrina's madrigal Alla riva del Tebro, which I've chosen because it is not as obvious as the madrigals by Gesualdo and Monteverdi. On the surface, it looks much like the imitative textures in all his composition, with very little rhythmic difference between the various lines of text. there seems to be no clear reason to alter the tempo or to adjust motion. However, when one reads the text, one has a different idea. First, in English. On the bank of the Tiber, I saw a lad, a sad shepherd, crying out these words: "Be satisfied, you cruel goddess, by my premature and guilty." But he could not say death, because grief killed him. O wretched fate. And the equally natural reading of the Italian: Alla riva del Tebro giovanetto vid io, vago pastore, mandar tai voci fuore, saziati, o cruda dea della mia acerba e rea. Ma dir non puote morte, qu'il duo lancise. Ai, miserabil sorte. As one looks at the score, one can see how necessary it is to ebb and flow the tempo, especially in measures 35 through 41, where the text is, "But he could not say death, because grief killed him." The music is, then, much more than an imitative texture, and it comes alive with extraordinary beauty as it reflects the text. Expression is the alpha and omega of Renaissance music. It is the reason composers wrote the music they did, and it is the expectation that the innate expression of music is revealed in performance. If not, the music is dull and lifeless, giving us and our audiences no reason to appreciate it. But if the expression of the music is revealed, if we search to find the expressive nature of the music and take every opportunity to make sure that the expression is transmitted in our performances, the music becomes very much like the visual arts of the time, rich and colorful, and as appealing to our ears as the paintings and sculptures are to our eyes. I urge you forward in this endeavor and wish you the most satisfying experiences as you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shrock, and this concludes our 2021 Ole Miss Choral Symposium. I hope you've enjoyed the premiere broadcast of our 5-part virtual presentation, Performing Renaissance Music, a virtual symposium on historical performance. My sincere thanks to our presenter, Dr. Dennis Shrock, for sharing his expertise and for his huge investment of time that went into the preparation of these wonderful videos. I also want to acknowledge once again our symposium singers, who conquered the challenges of remote recording and enhanced our presentations. The daunting task of editing was accomplished by several individuals. Our audio work was completed by Jeff Reed of Taproot Audio Design. 3 of our virtual examples were completed by Andrew Berkowitz. The bulk of our video editing was completed by Charles Miles of the University of Mississippi, to whom I send my sincere thanks for his hours and hours of work, and to his assistant, Amanda Fliflet. We cannot thank these people enough. And finally, to all of our viewers, we say thank you for watching, and we hope your future performances of Renaissance music will be enhanced and presented with confidence because of the information provided this week. On behalf of the University of Mississippi, thank you for watching.